So how is feed-forward part of communication? Well, communication is this four-part thing, right? So what I'm doing right now is expressing myself, but when I ask you a question, I'm soliciting your feedback about what I'm expressing or what Marshall expressed. So that's the second part. I make it easy for you to give feedback on it. If I just stood up here and talked the whole time, that's only one part of communication. But there's another part of communication, which is where I allow you to set the agenda. I don't just ask you a question, but I let you come up with the subject. So I facilitate your expression. And there's yet a fourth part to it there. So I've solicited your feedback, but I give you feedback. I provide feedback, honest feedback. So feed forward is about providing honest feed forward. It's about soliciting from other people information there. It's about expressing yourself in particular ways. So it's really about a lot of things there. And there's been a lot of recent research that has indicated that one of the things that makes companies more successful is the amount of trust that exists in those companies. And one of the things that makes individual units within a company more successful is the amount of trust that exists within those particular units. And Doug Stone up at Harvard recently gave me this very graphic representation of trust. He said, if what someone is saying is over here and what they're thinking is over here, you've got a real gap in trust. That trust occurs when you bring those two things together. And so one of the roles of communication in an organization is to get people to say what they are thinking. And one of the things that Feed Forward does is to ask people in a positive, future-oriented way to say what they are thinking. You'll see how this works out in a moment. Or not. So we've already talked a little bit about how it's different from feedback, but I want to just spend a little bit more time about this here. So downward feedback is, Angela, I'm going to pick on you. Angela works in my organization. And so if I'm giving feedback to you in terms of what's your performance been about, like this year in terms of that stuff there, it has the weight of, well, that's the guy who's, you know, the officer, the cognizant officer there is talking to someone else within the organization there. And it has all sorts of implications to it that may make it more difficult for me to say exactly what I'm thinking, may make it more difficult for you to actually listen to what I'm saying there. But it's absolutely necessary at times that we give feedback. I had to give 2 pieces of tough information this morning. I tried to, in the spirit of this, turn and feed forward, but it's important to do that. But there's a context to that that makes it more difficult to say, well, what's action-oriented about moving forward? Similarly, upward feedback, Angela coming to me and saying, let me tell you how you're screwing up, TJ, there. And she does it all the time, by the way, and which is probably good. It is very, very useful. So I'm not saying these things aren't useful at all there, but it's based upon what has already occurred. And there may be an element of, I hope you don't do that again, but what am I going to be focusing on? I'm going to be focusing on what I perceive to be the criticism as to what I've already done. And the difference with feed forward is, remember what he said? Forget the past. You do not allude to past events in doing a feed forward exercise.